The world was stunned. Few could have predicted the events that would unfold in the first days of 2026. On January 3, 2026, under the cover of darkness, U.S. Delta Force commandos executed a daring operation in the heart of Caracas, capturing Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. The city, already tense, was thrown into chaos as military vehicles rolled through the streets, their presence a stark reminder of the gravity of the moment. Just over a week later, the world watched in disbelief as Maduro and his wife stood before a U.S. federal court in New York. For millions of Venezuelans living in exile, it was a surreal and almost unimaginable sight, one that brought a flood of emotions, from vindication to disbelief. For the diaspora, this was the moment they'd dreamed of for years. Streets in Miami and Bogotá filled with cautious celebrations, but beneath the cheers, there was a deep undercurrent of skepticism. Years of broken promises and false hopes had taught them to be wary. Many remembered previous uprisings and failed negotiations and knew that change in Venezuela was never simple. The fall of one man, even a dictator, didn't guarantee the end of the system that drove them out. Corruption, fear, and uncertainty still lingered in every conversation. The raid itself was violent. 32 Cuban bodyguards killed, a U.S. pilot injured. The operation's brutality reminded everyone of the high stakes and the real human cost of political change. Yet, despite the dramatic capture, the U.S. did not install an opposition leader as many had hoped. The future remained uncertain. Instead, Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodríguez, was swiftly named interim president. For many, it felt like the regime had simply changed its face, not its nature. Celebrations faded quickly as the realization set in. The same power structures remained and the dream of true change seemed to slip further away. The Venezuelan Supreme Court denounced the capture as a kidnapping, using the moment to reinforce the regime's legitimacy and rally its supporters. President Trump declared his intention to run Venezuela and rebuild it, promising a new era. But the diaspora, having witnessed decades of turmoil, watched with wary hope, uncertain if this was liberation or another chapter of foreign intervention. They'd seen foreign interventions before, each with its own promises and disappointments. The scars of history ran deep, and trust was hard to rebuild. The dream of returning home felt closer than ever, but uncertainty and the weight of old power structures still cast a long, unyielding shadow over their hopes. Was this truly a new dawn for Venezuela, or just another illusion, destined to fade with the morning light? Across the Americas, the Venezuelan diaspora's reaction was a complex blend of hope, anxiety, and the hard-earned pragmatism that comes from years of uncertainty. For many, the news from home stirred memories of both heartbreak and resilience, and the sense that history might finally be turning a page, though no one dared to believe it too quickly. In Austin, Betty Nava, who fled persecution, found herself paralyzed by panic rather than joy. She had seen too many false dawns before, and each one had left a scar. The possibility of change was almost too much to hope for, and she clung to caution, not celebration. Lini, a lawyer, echoed the sentiment. Removing Maduro was only the first step in a much longer journey. She knew that true transformation would require more than a single political shift. Real change, she insisted, meant dismantling the entire regime and rooting out the systems that had kept so many in fear for so long. As long as Maduro's allies remained in power, the threat persisted, and the future remained uncertain for those who had risked everything to start over. In Lima, Peru, a younger generation of Venezuelans celebrated in the streets, their energy and optimism filling the air. For them, the possibility of change was a reason to gather, to sing, and to dream out loud. Yanelis Torres sold game over t-shirts, channeling hope into entrepreneurship. She saw opportunity in the moment, using her small business to spread a message of resilience and possibility. Yet, even the most optimistic among them weren't packing their bags just yet. The wounds of exile ran deep, and trust was slow to return. Yanelis had no plans to return. Her life, her friends, and her future were now rooted in Peru. She had built something new from the ashes of her old life. Years of building new lives abroad made the idea of returning daunting, even as nostalgia tugged at their hearts. The thought of starting over yet again was overwhelming. The diaspora's heart was still in Venezuela, but their feet were planted in new soil, and their futures were now intertwined with the places they had come to call home. Joy was real, but so was the caution born of hardship. Every smile was tempered by memories of loss and the knowledge that nothing was guaranteed. They watched, waited, and weighed every development with skepticism, knowing that hope could be as fragile as it was powerful. The longing for home remained, a constant ache, but so did the realities of exile and the determination to survive, wherever they found themselves. The biggest barrier to return isn't just politics, it's Venezuela's shattered economy, a crisis that touches every corner of daily life. For millions, the dream of going home is haunted by the reality of empty shelves, soaring prices, and a currency that's lost nearly all its value. One man's capture can't undo a decade of collapse, factories stand silent, businesses shuttered, and entire neighborhoods have been hollowed out by years of economic freefall. 8 in 10 Venezuelans still live in poverty, struggling to afford even the basics. Families ration food, and children grow up knowing scarcity as a daily companion. Infrastructure is crumbling, and daily survival remains a struggle. Power outages, water shortages, and broken roads are part of the new normal, making life unpredictable and often dangerous. Remittances from abroad are a lifeline for families, making return a risky proposition for exiles. Many depend on money sent from loved ones working overseas just to get by. Many have built careers and stability in their new countries. Returning would mean starting over in a broken job market. For professionals and workers alike, the risk of losing hard-won progress is simply too great. The international community's plans for recovery are ambitious, but rebuilding will take years. Aid and investment are only the first steps in a long journey toward real change. President Trump's proposal to use Venezuelan oil to pay for reconstruction highlights the scale of the crisis. The country's vast resources are both a hope and a challenge for the future. For the diaspora, these aren't just numbers. They're a timeline for when, if ever, it might be safe to go back. Each passing year adds new questions about what home even means. Until jobs, services, and stability return, the economic ghost will keep most exiles away. The hope for a better future is real, but so are the obstacles that remain. Hope is alive, but reality still rules. For now, the dream of return must wait for the day when Venezuela's economy can truly welcome its people home again. Peru, home to over 1 million Venezuelan migrants, is a snapshot of the diaspora's reality. Lima's streets are filled with Venezuelan life, but the news of Maduro's capture hasn't changed daily struggles. Yanelis Torres' story is typical. She built a business from scratch, supports her family, and focuses on survival. The idea of returning is a distant dream, not a plan. Years of adapting to a new country have created roots, however shallow. Many have enrolled children in schools, navigated immigration, and built fragile stability. The risks of returning to a volatile Venezuela outweigh the hope of change. The same regime remains in power, making return unthinkable for those who fled persecution. For now, Venezuelans in Peru watch and wait, caught between two worlds. In the U.S., the fall of Maduro brought new uncertainty for Venezuelan exiles. The Trump administration, having ended temporary protected status, now hints it's time for exiles to return. Many, like Betty Nava, face legal limbo, caught between a still dangerous homeland and a host country reconsidering their welcome. Immigration rules are unclear, leaving thousands anxious about their future. The joy of Maduro's capture is overshadowed by fear of losing the right to stay. Betty's panic attack reflects the psychological toll. She supports family back home, but doesn't trust Venezuela is safe. The U.S. government's grand plans for Venezuela feel disconnected from the daily struggles of exiles. Calls to return seem premature, ignoring the dangers that remain. For many, the American dream is now as uncertain as the Venezuelan one. After Maduro's capture, governments across the region urged Venezuelans to return home. The U.S. framed the operation as liberation, while Peru and Chile hoped to ease the strain of migration. But the diaspora responded with silence. No rush to book flights, no mass movement. Exiles saw these calls as political, not practical, and trusted their own networks over official statements. The unchanged power structure in Caracas, Delcy Rodríguez at the helm, was the main reason for hesitation. The Chavista system, not just Maduro, drove them out. Until there's real change, free elections, disarmed militias, independent courts, return is off the table. The diaspora's decision will be based on evidence, not rhetoric. For now, they remain where they are, waiting for proof of true transformation. Inside Venezuela, life goes on, but tension simmers beneath the surface. The government projects calm, but armed collectivos still roam, and the economy remains in ruins. Oil production is stalled, basic goods are scarce, and jobs are few. Political change is mostly symbolic. Key opposition figures remain sidelined, and the old guard holds power. The opposition is fractured, unable to seize the moment. For ordinary Venezuelans, hope and fear coexist. They whisper to relatives abroad, wary of surveillance. Maduro's capture was cathartic, but not a solution. The core crises, economic collapse, repression, and division, persist. The nation waits, uncertain if this is a turning point or just another chapter of struggle. Maduro's capture was a geopolitical earthquake, not just a Venezuelan event. The U.S. now seeks direct control over Venezuela's recovery and oil, alarming neighbors wary of intervention. Cuba, long dependent on Venezuelan aid, faces crisis as the U.S. cuts off support. Colombia, with millions of Venezuelan migrants, eyes the situation warily, fearing instability and U.S. dominance next door. Talks with the IMF and World Bank may unlock funds, but American interest will guide the process. Oil giants are already planning massive investments. Reconstruction will be a corporate and geopolitical affair, with little input from ordinary Venezuelans or their exiles. The region braces for a new balance of power. January 11, 2026. The diaspora stands at a crossroads, hopeful but wary. Maduro's capture is a powerful symbol, but not a guarantee of change. The dream of returning home feels closer, yet the regime's infrastructure remains. Calls to return sound more like political expediency than genuine invitation. Economic and political recovery will take years, and personal dilemmas complicate every decision. For many, new lives abroad can't be easily abandoned. The diaspora is watching, waiting, and weighing every risk. The choice to return will be deeply personal, made only when real change is undeniable. Until then, they support loved ones from afar and keep hope alive. The road home is visible, but the journey will be long, and only taken when hope outweighs fear.